Hello, and welcome to As Built, the podcast from Graphic Machine about architecture firms, buildings, and how both get built. I'm your co-host, Patience Jones. With me, as always, is my co-host and your co-host,
Brian Jones.
Thank you for joining us. Today's episode is another in our series, Growth Challenges. Growth is exciting, challenges less, but let's turn those challenges into opportunities. So today's growth challenge is the partner exit. So in the life of any architecture firm, there may come a time when one or more leaders, and that could be a partner or it could be a very senior person, a very visible person, decide to exit the firm for non-retirement reasons. They may give you a heads up, or they may announce one day that this is their last day at the firm. While it won't feel like it right then, this is indeed a survivable event. What we're going to talk about is how to navigate your way through it.
First and foremost, it's really not something you can prepare for in advance, and we're not advocating for that. I just want to be clear.
Grim.
So let's just be clear on that. But to kick this off, I think you have a couple of buckets in my mind that things fall into.
Fuck it.
Yeah, I know. Just walked right into that one. But things that you have to think about when you're considering this new transition that's happening. So the first is things that they are a part of on the branded materials of the firm. What's their impact? What's their footprint like on that front? And then there's the more...
Sorry, by that you mean like business cards? Or do you mean like the actual name of the firm?
I mean, if it's the name of the firm, that's certainly a larger thing to consider. If it's the website, if it's any number of things, they range from like severely structural to cosmetic. So it's important to address...
Things whiteout can fix and things that it can't.
Yes, exactly. But also it's the messaging that you're going to need to communicate, or the groups of messages that you're going to need to develop to communicate the change in the firm, and deciding what you want your message to be. And then it kind of, I guess the third one, although I didn't think I had one, was that the idea of how people in the firm, what does it change anything in the way the firm functions or runs? And that. So those are my three.
I like them. I think we could even rename them to be sort of the communication, the verbal and written communication, the visual communication, and the emotion. Okay. Is that fair?
That's fair. I mean, I think there's process in there too, but yeah.
Process? Who needs process?
Process is so important.
Okay, so is it process, written and visual communication, emotion?
Okay, I like it.
Okay. So let's talk about process. Let's start with that one.
So identifying things that person was responsible for, identifying projects that person was responsible for that may retain with the firm that have to be passed off onto someone else, and key accounts that person was connected with that you may need to communicate with. And it's really just, we'll talk about the communication on another part of it, but like identifying what their footprint was on that front is really critical, and what they're involved in.
If the person is leaving not on bad terms, and in this hypothetical for our episode, there's probably a 50% chance of that. If they are not leaving on bad terms and they have more than 48 hours left at the firm, it's usually a good idea to have somebody shadow them. Not to be like, I'm making sure you're not stealing pencils, but to try to capture everything that person really does and is responsible for. Because anybody who's worked in a job for a really long time, if you sit them down and you say, okay, tell us everything that you do, it's impossible to remember every single thing. And if the person who's leaving, they may have sort of an informal deputy at the firm or somebody who's already really close with them who can give you all that information. If they don't, and they're a little bit of a lone wolf, it would be good to have somebody or a couple designers just shadow them for a week and take notes and ask them questions and where is this file and how often do you talk to that client, etc.
On the adversarial side, if that's not an option, definitely working with people that are on the team, getting a sense of what has been happening on certain projects and understanding what the roles are, and then from the leadership coming together and making a list and divvying up the duties that were previously on that other person.
Anything else on the process front?
I think that's a good start. I'm sure there are other things that would come up in the process, but that's a good start.
So communication.
Yes. Early and often. I think it's like we've said so many times on this podcast, where having an understanding of what your client the clients that are impacted by this transition, making sure that you find an appropriate person to be the point person doing the outreach, that they don't feel like they're just being handed off to someone, that this is an equivalent or better connection that they're receiving for the duration of their project if there's one underway. That's really important. In terms of other communication, I would say helping to announce this in a way that is pretty factual to the internal part of the firm, because I think relationships inside of firms can be complicated and you don't want to create divisions where none are necessary.
And trying to think of a way to spin this that doesn't just sound like I'm a Cassandra, but what somebody intends to do when they give their notice may not be what they ultimately end up doing. So if somebody tells you, I'm leaving the firm because I've decided I'm just going to go travel the world and teach architecture to grade school students in other countries. Okay, fine. 3 months later, they take a job as a partner at another firm. Possibly, quite possibly, because they had some sort of epiphany in that 3-month period and decided, you know what, I really do want to keep practicing and I don't want to do the thing that I thought I was going to do.
Yeah.
And it's not because they had nefarious intentions or they were trying to deceive you. They just changed their mind. But they could end up anywhere. And just because they say, I'm not going to be in the field anymore, doesn't mean that that will be the ultimate outcome.
Yep.
And it is so much better to try to maintain those relationships if you can. I mean, whether they're going to be an architect or not, that's a good idea. But especially if they're going to continue to be an architect, it would be better to have somebody that you have a good relationship with than an adversarial one.
Absolutely.
I think the only caveat that I would make to the communications is if the separation is adversarial, if the person is quitting because they're mad, furious, whatever, and this is not legal advice, it is a good idea to check with your lawyer before you make any statements to anyone, clients, employees, anybody, about the person or why they're leaving, because that may end up needing to be a point of negotiation in a settlement with them about what they're entitled to, what you're willing to give them, and you don't want to create a situation where you've closed off any possibilities inadvertently. Emotion.
I mean, I think that one of the great things that firms can do, and there's a lot of different ways that this can be implemented, but make sure that there's an opportunity to reconnect the firm as a whole, to bring people to see the totality of the firm and to kind of give an opportunity to reintroduce people who might have been working on that team with that person into the larger firm to make sure that they don't feel isolated. That's definitely the first thing I would try and tackle inside a firm.
And the person leaving, and we've talked about this before on the podcast, the person leaving, that leaving is going to have an impact on a lot of people for a lot of different reasons. And some may be relieved, and some may be really sad, and some may have mixed feelings. It's important to understand, especially if that person has been with the firm for a long time, it's important to understand that your employees may need some morale boost. They may have a lot of questions. They may start to wonder if their future is secure. If that person really liked them and they're leaving the firm, are they now going to get garbage work because leadership is angry at the person who left? So be mindful of what your employees are going through, but also be mindful of what you're going through. If you've worked with someone day in and day out and they come in one day and announce, I'm out of here on Friday, you may be totally surprised by that. Maybe you saw it coming. Maybe you're relieved. Maybe you're bitter. I don't know. But it's going to take an emotional toll on you. And if you're not aware of that, that's going to trickle down to how you treat your employees. And if you are extending them the degree of trust that they have earned, or if you're starting to penalize them because you feel like this person betrayed you. And no matter how badly that other person acted, if you start to embody that and you're just dripping with anger and resentment and fury and we're going to ruin them, that's really going to poison the culture of your firm. So I say this in all seriousness. If you need to go get counseling, get counseling. If you need to talk to somebody about it, talk to somebody about it. This may be a relationship that was as important and possibly more important than any other relationship you've had in your life. potentially. So give it its due, do what you need to do to be able to get through it. You don't have to be happy about it, but you have to be able to get through it and continue to be a leader for your firm. Continue to focus on the positive outcomes, because that's what will keep your people and bring on new people.
So big takeaways here.
Lock the doors and don't ever let anyone.
Very good takeaway.
Well, the takeaway, I think, is allow yourself a little bit of time for whatever the shock may be, or the validation of what you think you already saw coming, but then start to take steps to deal with the 3 buckets: the process, the communication, and the emotion.
And I think the thing I would encourage in this moment is to be not plotting, but methodical. And it can be
Plotting, PLODDING.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay, good.
Yes. And to make it something where you're being thorough, you're going through the steps, and you're going to come out the other side in a better position.
That's exactly right. Well, we hope we've left you in a better position. And thank you for joining us. We will talk to you next time.